All right. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills. I am Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Sal Maiorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle with us as always. And what a night as the
Yeah,
Bills end the regular season with a 35-8 win over the New York Jets and bid fond farewell to the current Highmark Stadium before moving across the street. A road playoff team in all likelihood for all of the games as it stands. Sal, how you holding up, man? What kind of a night was that for you, and how were your emotions coming out of it?
yeah. It was a fun day all the way around. I got there pretty early, probably 4 hours before the game, like I usually do, and I took my last 2 mile walk around the footprint of the stadium. There, it was a little cold, I will say that, but it was good to do that. And then the whole day really, Adam, was just about taking it all in. I mean, the game was so ridiculously out of hand early, which was nice because it turned the whole thing into a party for the fans. I mean, it would have had a little bit of a different feel if they'd lost the game, even though it wouldn't have been a catastrophe loss, but it would have taken away from the party atmosphere that was going down really all day long. So it was nice the Bills took care of business, as you and I both said they would with their backups. There was never really a concern. But just taking it all in, and from being in the press box, it's a little bit different than being out in the crowd. We're removed from that electric atmosphere out there. It's muffled. The sound is muffled in there. So, it was nice to be up there. Would it have been more fun if I was a fan for a day and being outside? Yeah, probably. It probably would have been a lot more fun. And I'm glad 70,000 people got to experience it. But for me, it was just taking it all in. I went on the field after the game to do my wrap-up video. And, that sort of hit me like, yep, the last time I'm going to walk on this field. And then as I was leaving the press box, I actually got done a little bit before several people. So I didn't turn the lights out like I thought I might have to. And I just, kind of took it all in, stood there, looked out over the field. It was still lit up because the lights were still on. And I just told everybody who was still left, it's been an honor and a privilege to share this space with all of you. And it was a nice little moment. And then I walked out and drove home. So that's the end of it. But, the thing is, Adam, not a whole lot changes for us, especially in the media. I mean, we're still going to be working at the field house. They're still practicing there. All we're going to be doing now is taking a left instead of a right to go park our cars on game day. All the tailgating is going to stay the same for the fans. It's just a new place to go sit and watch the game, and it'll be a much nicer place. So it was sad and nostalgic, but it's also, you look to the future, and there's a very bright future ahead for the Bills and their new stadium.
Well, you know what? I've heard a lot of people express concern about preserving the tradition and all of those things, but what you just described with so much staying the same and just entering a different facility that's much more modern but still outdoor, albeit with the canopy and everything else. I mean, I feel like a lot of that tradition is going to be preserved. It's not like, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have built a dome downtown. I don't want to get into that debate. That's not what this is about. But it's not like they did. You know what I mean? Where everything around the stadium is going to change as well.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it could even enhance, it preserves so much of the current tradition and to a great degree likely enhances it, right?
That I was never on board with building the stadium anyplace else, especially downtown. Believe me, I've traveled all over the league. There are multiple downtown stadiums in these cities that we go to, and I hate every one of them because there's just not the atmosphere you get when you're out in the suburbs like Buffalo is in Orchard Park with all that space to tailgate and party. It isn't the same. And I don't care what you say about what it might have meant for downtown. I think that's all a bunch of bullshit. I think you probably agree with me. It's great that it's right across the street from the old place. Everyone's roots to the game remain the same. Everyone's comfortable going however they go to get there. They have their little places where they park or whatever. Nothing really changes. You're just changing sides of the street to watch the game. And I think that's ideal. That's exactly what happened in Foxborough with Gillette Stadium, replacing the old dump that they had there right across the parking lot, actually. And it's a great, everyone just was comfortable going back out there. And it's the same for Bills fans. So I think that's the best thing, is that it's still right there where we're all familiar with what is happening out there.
What did you think of the job that the Bills did I thought it was first class. It wasn't overdone either. I mean,
No,
go ahead.
what the one thing that disappointed me, Adam, was there was a very small amount of alumni that came back. I mean, there might have been 25 guys on the field.
Mhm.
I didn't really count. It's kind of hard to count from the press box, but it looked like about 20 to 25. And there were several big names that weren't there. I just felt like, if they actually really had an alumni, I'm not even sure who runs the alumni for the Bills anymore. It's changed a couple times. I really wish they had done a bigger push to bring guys in. And it just felt like that was a little bit lacking. I kind of wanted to see like 100 former Bills on that field, and that we didn't get that at all. The only thing that we heard, Kelly spoke, Eric Wood was the MC. Kelly spoke briefly. That was it. Thurman and Tasker did the thing they do every week with the lead the charge. That was nothing special. So I wish they had gotten a little bit more of the alumni back in town, because there's 53 years of guys that played there, and it was a very sparse turnout. Again, I don't know what went into that. If they didn't want to pay for guys to fly up there, or whatever the thing was, that was the only thing that lacked in my mind, was just a small alumni presence.
And before we move on to the matchup with Jacksonville on Wildcard Weekend, I know you have a project, a commemorative coffee table book that you guys are putting together with the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Why don't you go ahead and just tell us about that right now and how fans could get themselves a copy?
Yeah, we're doing it's called Farewell to the Ralph. I had been working on it all year. My 53 most memorable games in 53 years at Highmark Stadium, right back to the very first game. And then the last game that's going to be in there was the Baltimore game from week 1. That's going to sneak its way into the book. So yeah, it's my memories. We also have another writer, Emily Barnes, who's kind of doing a narrative. She spent all season going to the games and talking to fans and getting great stories. So they're going to put it all together. And whenever the Bills season ends, however long it takes to get it out, maybe a month, and it'll be available. Right now they're doing pre-orders. I've seen it everywhere. Pediment Publishing is the company. So it'll be a nice commemorative coffee table type of book, lots of pictures and like I said, my memories. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that come out.
Okay, so moving on, what's next? Bills head south down to Florida to Jacksonville, wildcard matchup, 1:00 Sunday against the Jaguars. FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show and others on the Believe Network, has Buffalo as a 1.5 point favorite on the road in this game, which I find interesting. Look, Jacksonville, I think it's a tough draw for them. They've won 8 in a row, 9 of their last 10 games. Number 1 run defense in the National Football League. We all know what that gives them the opportunity to do against Buffalo. What's your initial take on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're a good team. I mean, that's going to be a tough matchup for the Bills. One thing I will say, they've won 8 games in a row, Adam, since they lost. They actually lost to the Texans the last game. November 9th was their last loss. Since then, Adam, they've won 8 in a row. But look, let's just tap the brakes here. It took overtime to beat the Cardinals. 2 of the wins came against the Titans. 1 of the wins came against the Jets. Those are all Cardinals, Titans, and Jets, all 3-14 teams. They beat the Colts twice. The Colts obviously were in the midst of a 7-game losing streak when they played both of those games. So they have 1 or 2 really quality wins. They won against the Chargers at home, and their best win was they went into Denver a few weeks ago and won. So those are good wins. You can't overlook them. You win 8 in a row in the NFL. That's a hell of an accomplishment. But I will tap the brakes on thinking that they're unbeatable, because they did beat a bunch of bum teams down the stretch. So very similar to how we've talked about New England all year. A really, forget the Jacksonville Jaguars were 4-13 last year. They had a last place schedule. So I definitely think the Bills can go down there and win this game. Matter of fact, I just did my look ahead. It just published about an hour ago, and I picked the Bills to win. Close, but I think the Bills can go down there and get this win. So they're a good team. I'm not saying they're not, but I think the Bills can win the game.
Well, and Allen gives them the opportunity. I mean, you look at the AFC and who's left. Look, I mean, they're going to be in every game they play against every opponent, regardless of where it's played. I don't think there's any question about that. But with this Jacksonville team in particular, we mentioned the run defense. You take it whatever way you want. Where do you think where can the Bills exploit, and what can the Bills exploit against this team? What validate that pick? What gives you that sense beyond the quarterback himself about this game?
There's a couple things. You're right about their run defense. Number one in the league, 85 yards a game. In fact, the best running performance against them, Jonathan Taylor had 74 yards in one of the games the Colts played against them. So they're very good against the run, no doubt about it. It'll be tough for the Bills to get James Cook going. I think they can, because the Bills are probably one of the best rushing teams the Jaguars will have faced all year. So that's going to be a strength on strength matchup, and it could go either way. I think where the Bills can make some hay, Adam, their passing game, we've talked all year about, this has been a struggling passing game. Jacksonville plays a lot of zone defense, and they also do not rush the quarterback very well. Even though they got Josh Hines-Allen, who's a terrific pass rusher, they have not been a good sack team this year. I think if Allen can get protected, and his receivers, we know can't win on man-to-man, but if they can find seams in this zone, and they do play a ton of zone, that's just their scheme, I think the Bills can make some hay. That short passing game has kind of carried the Bills all year. So I think there's room to do something in that area. And then on the defensive side, look, Trevor Lawrence has had a very nice second half of the year. Through about the first 7 games this year, we were thinking about Trevor Lawrence the same thing we thought about him in his first 4 seasons. He was a disappointing former number 1 overall pick. Now he's gotten some time in Liam Combs' offensive system, and it's clearly worked for him. He had a great second half of the year, ended up with a career-high 29 touchdown passes. But again, I think in the last, whatever it was, 8 games, I think it encompasses the winning streak. I think it was 19 touchdowns and 1 pick against a lot of bad teams. He's only played 2 playoff games in his career. Let's see. He's playing a playoff-hardened team, and a lot of that is nonsense, right? Playoff experience.
I don't think
it's overrated.
I don't think so.
But sometimes it can be overrated. But you're right. In this case, they are not a playoff-tested team down there. They're going to have a little bit of pressure. They're the home team. They're the number 3 seed. I think the Bills can do something, in terms of their playoff experience. And the bottom line, Josh Allen is better than Trevor Lawrence. So that's where I think the Bills, that's why I think the Bills can go down there and get it done. I mean, Jacksonville has been a goofy team for the Bills. They lost to them twice in London. They've lost 2 wild card games to them. One here long time ago, and then the one a couple years ago, McDermott's first year. So they don't have a great history against the Jaguars. There's been some really puzzling. That game in 21, probably the worst loss of Sean McDermott's tenure, maybe. So there's a little bit of history to fight for the Bills. But I think the Bills are every bit as good as Jacksonville, and I think they can go down there and get the job done. I might not feel that way the week after if they win, when they have to play maybe Denver, but I think this week there's a chance they can go down there and do it.
How concerned are you about injuries at this point? With the Prater situation kind of looming as we record this on this Monday afternoon, and then Haristston as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, Haristston, people were bitching about it on Twitter, like, what was he in the game for? Look, people, you can't sit every player. They only had 3 cornerbacks going into the game because they sat Benford. They weren't going to play him at all. So Trey White and Haristston had to play the bulk of the game. In fact, I think Trey White played every snap on defense. So Haristston getting hurt sucked, but Trey White has surprised us all, Adam. He really has. I did not expect him to be anywhere near as good as he's been. Now, he hasn't been great, but he has been perfectly functional while he shared time for a good part of the season with Haristston. So if they have to go in and he plays the whole game with Christian Benford, I think that's fine. Now, they can't have an injury because they've got big problems depth-wise. I'm not even sure what they're going to do. I don't even know where they would go. I guess now the playoffs are here. You get unlimited practice squad additions. So I guess they could always call up Dane Jackson. He'd already used all 3 for the regular season. But yeah, they need to have Trey White and Benford play well and play the whole game, because the Haristston injury is probably going to cost them this week at least. And then the Prater, that was bad news, man. That was the Haristston injury sucked. Don't get me wrong. But when we heard that Prater got hurt, it was right around halftime when we learned that. We're like,
I mean,
Yeah.
you know how important kickers are, especially in the postseason. And now they got to go out. I doubt they're bringing Michael Badgley back. So now they got to find somebody else who they didn't even like better than Badgley the first time they tried to find a kicker. So that's a tricky one.
Yeah, and what will likely be a close game, right? So,
Yeah.
lastly, here, we should certainly note that it's official. James Cook got it done,
Yeah.
wins the rushing title. I think that's significant on a number of levels,
Yeah.
and a nice way to button up the history with the current Highmark Stadium and all of that. But it emphasizes the commitment to the run under Joe Brady and the importance of it to this offense as well.
Yeah. That's another really cool full circle moment, Adam. OJ had won his first rushing title in 72, the last year of the rock pile. But Rich Stadium opened that first year. OJ had the 2,000-yard season. And now James Cook wraps it up by winning the rushing title. So they played the Jets in the first regular season game, and the last, the rushing titles. That was a pretty cool thing. It was funny at halftime. I left the stadium with about 5 minutes to go in the Ravens Steelers game, first half. And Henry had already had like 110 yards or whatever it was. So I'm figuring, well, okay, I'll have to change that line in my story because there's no way he's not going to get that, whatever he needed left to go past James Cook. And then I'm driving home and I was checking the game on my phone. I wanted to see. And I was like, what happened? He hasn't gained a yard since. And he ended up not getting there. So, man, that's a game I wish I had seen, by the way. Holy smokes. I was driving the whole time. I missed the whole game. Matter of fact, I got home. I literally was pulling into the garage when he missed the field goal at the end to win the game. So I missed that whole game, but man, what a crazy. And you know what pissed me off, Adam? This just is going to piss me off. We had hoped that the Steelers would win that game and the Bills would get to the 5th seed and then go play them because I think they stink. I think the Bills would roll them again. We were this close because the stupid Colts inside the 10-yard line could not get it into the end zone and settled for the field goal. And then, of course, their defense in the last minute and a half allowed the Texans to go kick the winning field goal. We were this close to driving to Pittsburgh, which is ideal, for a first-round playoff game that I think the Bills would have been favored by at least a touchdown, maybe more.
Maybe more.
Now they're stuck playing the Jaguars in a much tougher game. So, man, it was almost a dream scenario Sunday. It fell just short, though.
All right, so that's where we're going to wrap it up. We'll pick it up later this week with an official wild card preview. Bills, Jacksonville Jaguars, 1 o'clock down in Jacksonville on Sunday. So for Sal Maiorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, I'm Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Thanks for being with us here on Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel.